Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Outreach with Reggie. And before we begin, I must say that I wish we were coming together today under lighter circumstances. But here's the truth. This has been one of those weeks. It's been one of those weeks. It's been one of those weeks where the weight of the world feels heavier than usual. In just a few days, we've witnessed tragedy after tragedy after tragedy. And what do you mean, Reggie? What do you mean? Well, a mass shooting took place in Colorado that has shattered many lives in an instant. A stabbing on a train that left everyday people caught in violence that they did not ask for. And even the shocking assassination of Charlie Kirk, no matter where you stand politically, it is chilling to see political violence taking another American life. And then to top things off, yesterday, at the day of this recording, marked 24 years since 9/11 happened. 2 decades ago, over 2 decades ago, and much change has happened within how we view life, the framework of life, and even how life looks now. But yet the wounds, the actions, the fear, the drama, the pain is still with us. The fear, the suspicion, and loss is pain that we still carry, trauma that we still carry on for. And I know it's a lot to hold right now. But this is why today's conversation matters, because when headlines repeat themselves with violence, when it feels like nowhere is truly safe, the real question becomes, what does safety even mean? Is it something that only comes from police presence, from the badge, from more surveillance, and more armed responses? Or is safety something we have the power to build ourselves? Something rooted in community and not control? Today, we're going to stretch our imaginations and our courage to ask, can we police ourselves? Can we keep each other safe without the badge? Stay tuned. Now, as we go into this episode, we have to be honest with ourselves. Let's be real. And let's be honest. When people think of safety, most of the time, they automatically associate that with police. Protect and serve, as they say. It is how we've been conditioned to believe that when we're around police, we just trust, we understand. That's a unwritten line of communication. That when police is here, we are safe and secure. When we see police patrol cars, officers at schools, security cameras on every single corner, the message is protection comes from them. And yet, what do we see? Mass shootings keep happening. Every single year, we see mass shooting after mass shooting after mass shooting. On top of that, domestic violence keeps destroying families. Hate crimes are rising. Trains, schools, grocery stores, churches, movie theaters have all that was known for entertainment, fun, refuge, and even a part of our day-to-day lives. Places of employment and just the way we live have all become sites and have all become sites of tragedy. So I need to ask, if the system is working, why do we feel so unsafe? Well, the truth is policing is built to react, not prevent. Police show up after the harm has already happened. They file the report, they try to make it an arrest, but the trauma, the blood spilled, the effects of the events that occur, that is still there. And if we are honest, for many of our communities, especially Black, brown, immigrant, and poor folks, or folks that are within low class environments and communities, policing does not always feel like safety at all. It feels like surveillance. It feels like harassment. It feels like danger that we often go to them for and could be the catalyst for us not making it home. And so here we are, asking the harder question. If safety does not begin and end with police, then what else is possible? Well, I'll tell you. Just stay tuned. So, what does safety look like? Well, let me paint the picture for those who may have questions. Imagine a neighborhood at dusk or in the afternoon, towards evening time, and the sun is fading, and the street lights come on, and they're glowing. And you see families outside, neighbors chatting on porches, kids laughing and chasing each other down the block, enjoying their childhood, having fun. Elders sitting in chairs, just watching the evening go by. That is safety. Neighborhood watches. Communities coming together, joining each other in neighbors, as family, as friends, and keeping a keen eye on their neighborhood. That's safety, because not because a patrol car circled the block and made its presence known, but because people, knew each other. People knew each other. People cared. Now compare that to what we've been told safety looks like and how we protect ourselves, protect our homeland and what is home to us and the things that we cherish. Barbed wire fences, armed guards, flashing blue lights, dogs. That's not safety. That is fear dressed up as protection. But here's the good news. Communities across this country have been creating models that actually work regarding this matter of policing. For instance, in Chicago and Baltimore, violence interrupters step in to stop conflicts before they spiral. In Eugene, Oregon, an organization called Cahoots sends unarmed crisis responders to mental health emergencies, saving lives and saving the city millions of dollars. In schools, using restorative justice, suspension rates drop, trust rises, and students learn to resolve conflict instead of escalating it. These programs remind us safety is not the absence of crime, it is the presence of care, opportunity, and trust. And I want to highlight something, but I will save that for this next segment of the episode. So, once again, stay tuned. As we go into leasing and as we go into what does alternatives look like, I want to give a bit of a personal reflection. I'm going to share a few stories that remind me about policing and how things could have been handled better to kind of highlight what this episode's about. Back in 2022, there was a man by the name of Nigel Cullings, and he was out with his family, and he was having a time where his family described it as a mental health issue. He was in a crisis in a restaurant. And because no one knew how to handle it, police were called because it was an outrage and it was a sense of fear, right? And as the police came over, they did not know how to handle it properly. So what did they do? What happened? What was the result? He was shot and killed by Atlanta police officers as he was going through this situation at the time, as he was going through a mental health crisis. And his family had stated that his mother had called police for help earlier that day about his mental health issues. And with this knowledge still, he was found in a situation where he lost his life. And over 2 years later, which caused public outrage, they decided to release the footage. Another story I want to share is a story of Anthony Hill, who was a U.S. Air Force veteran that was fatally shot. He was unarmed and naked, going through a mental health crisis. And I bring these stories up not to target, not to attack, not to dismantle the idea of policing altogether. I bring this up because it's the fact that I want to challenge the idea of our approach. Because I'll be honest with you all, there have been moments in my life where I didn't feel safe. As a young African American male in the city of Atlanta, I've had moments where I've walked down this street. I've walked the streets. I've entered places where at times I didn't feel qualified and I was talked about and I was questioned of how did you get here? Who invited you? I remember early on within the advocacy space, and it's so much so I remember speaking at a conference. I was speaking at one of the conferences many years ago. And there was a guy, he looked rich, he looked very affluent. And he asked me, "What am I doing here?" And I just looked at him. I didn't tell him I was speaking today. I looked at the itinerary and I didn't say anything. It was only until after I spoke and he saw me later that night, he almost tried to whisper to me that, "Oh, you did a good job." But by then the damage was already done. because I didn't feel safe. I still did what I was supposed to do in advocacy. I shared my story to highlight the organizations that I was supporting at that time. But I say that to say there are times when walking at home at night, I didn't find comfortable. I didn't find comfort when there was a squad car that drove by. I didn't find that there was safety in that badge. It was about whether my neighbors knew me, where my friends knew me, where someone noticed if I didn't make it home, whenever the people around me saw me as a part of their community in the community and not just a stranger passing through. And I know for some of you listening, you feel that as well. Maybe you have been failed by the system. Maybe you have called for help and no one came. Maybe the very people who were supposed to protect you became the source of your fears. So I want to tell you, you're not alone. And you're not wrong for wanting something different. So let me ask you, what would it look like if your neighborhood defined safety on its own terms? Would there be safety? Who would you trust to show up in a crisis? If you were in a crisis or if your friend was in a crisis, how would you show up? And who would show up for you? And what role could you play in building that world for you, yourself, your community, and the people you care about? Because safety isn't just a policy, it is a practice, it is personal, and it starts with us. So, as a message to my dearest of friends, dearest of family, dearest of loved ones, and the people too I care about, including the people that are listening right now, the tragedies of this past week are heavy. A train stabbing, a Colorado shooting, a political assassination in 24 years since 9/11. And not to mention the thousands and thousands of shootings and dangers that happen daily in your local communities. All of it adds up to a simple truth. We can't keep replaying the same stories and expecting a different meaning. Yes, we need accountability. Yes, we need justice. But more than anything, we need imagination. Imagine schools where conflicts are meditated before fists are thrown. Imagine cities where mental health crises are met with compassion instead of bullets. Imagine neighborhoods where the loudest sound at night isn't a siren, but kids still playing outside because they feel safe enough to. That future is possible, but it requires us to believe that safety does not belong entirely to the police alone. It belongs to us, to the people, to the community. So here's my challenge to you. Show up for your block, your neighborhood, your community. Learn your neighbors' names. Support organizations doing restorative and preventative work. Push your city to fund community responders, not just more jails. God forbid we build another jail and or prison before we build another after school program, before we build another community garden, before we build another church, before we build another place of refuge and comfort and safety within our community. And most importantly, do not let fear be the only architect of our future. Do not allow the world that you live in currently, that we all live in currently, do not allow it to be built on the backs of fear. Allow it to be built on love, of safety, of community, and doing it together. Because fear builds walls, but love builds safety. I want to close by leaving you with some resources because I do not want today's episode to just stir in your heart. I want it to guide your hands. If you or someone you know needs help, or if you want to be a part of solutions, here are some places to start. Cahoots, meaning crisis assistance helping out on the streets in Eugene, Oregon, which is a national model for unarmed crisis response. Cure Violence Global, interrupting cycles of gun violence worldwide. NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness. Call 1-800-950-NAMI for mental health support. Every Town for Gun Safety, Every Town for Gun Safety, advocacy and education around preventing gun violence. And lastly, the Restorative Justice Project. That is the Restorative Justice Project, promoting healing and alternatives to punishment. Check out these resources. Share them with someone you love. And remember, change does not come from waiting for the system to fix itself. It comes from us. So all of the emotions, no matter if you're angry, no matter if you're sad, no matter if you're crying, no matter if you feel like the world is falling apart and you just don't know where to start, I promise you, give yourself time to feel. Take it in. Feel what you need to feel, but do not stay there. This is not a time to stay. Take your emotions. Allow it to fuel you and be a part of the healthy change towards safety. Check out these resources, share them with someone you love, and remember, change does not come from waiting for the system to fix itself. It comes from us. So I thank you for spending time with me on Outreach with Reggie. If this episode moved you, please share it, leave a review, follow on Spotify or Apple or Amazon or iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcast. And join the conversation online using the hashtag community safety. Until next time, stay safe, stay connected, and above all, stay human. This has been Reggie. Take care.